have some opportunity for people who gathered here to present some questions.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short, but usually when you start trying to keep it short, it comes very long, so I'll try any case. But first I want to thank also Dr. Raz Segal, because I think that here in the university we hear a lot about the Holocaust and Holocaust studies. In general, that is a phenomenon of Israel, and we can see it in other universities as well. And actually, Raz was very much the man who stood behind this series of lecture and brought us many voices that usually we definitely don't hear. Even if we read them, we don't hear them and we don't discuss with them. So I think we really should thank Raz for this general series about genocide in the 20th century, which actually exposed all of us to many different views and voices. Now, if I understand rightly, and I must admit, I usually say I understand nothing in genocide. I deal mainly with Holocaust, and the only thing I know is from things, other research that I read. What you are trying to show, at least at this paper, is that as a historian of Europe in the 20th century, you try to ask why do we have this violence of masses that gets to a genocide, and you're trying to connect the murder of the Serbs and Armenian and Jews, or Muslims, Christian and Jews, and I'll refer to this in a second, and see them as part of this collapse of different empires and new entities which arose. And here I have some question which mainly describing such a huge geographical area and so many different historical events. So for sure there are some things which must be simplified, but I think that there is a great price in this general description, and I want to raise a few questions. First of all, this division between Muslims, Christians, and Jews. It's really nice, if one can say, because we have here the three big monotheistic religions. But when we're looking on the Jews who were persecuted during the Holocaust, we see that it was much more than religion or ethnic belonging. It was not only this racial term, but actually almost something racial and mythical. And talking about the Jews, nobody really tried to see if those people who were murdered practiced Judaism or if they had any connection, identity to this Jewish ethnicity or whatever we'll call it. So the question is, can we put all of them in the same place, especially when we have so many things in the Jewish history which impose the Jews in a very special position within Europe in the 20th century and before, as well as many different interaction of the Jews in each one of those countries. So what is the price that we're paying here? Another thing is, of course, this big variety of the Jews, which brings us to the question. We're going time after time to the fact that in many different places, for many different reasons, Jews were targeted during the Second World War. So why is this violence, which was so specific in its target, though the victims were so much different? Some of them could have been seen in your paper. You also present the theme of modernity. Some of them could be grasped as agent of modernity, but some of them were very much primitive, one can say. Some of them saw themselves as Jews, others Israelis, or others didn't have any connection. And of course, in Eastern Europe, the Judaism was much more than religion. So what do we do with this variety of the Jews, and to the fact that they were targeted in so many places by so many people from so many different reasons, and I will refer to that in a second again. Another thing is that in this paper, unlike, I must say, if I understand rightly, in your book, The Final Solution, a Genocide, you refer mainly to the murder of the Jews as the Holocaust. But actually, when we deal with the Holocaust, many times we refer to some steps, and you refer to them in your book, that came before the murder of the Jews. And that is not only in the eastern part, but also in the Netherlands and France and so on. The Holocaust was much more, one of the things that we talk today in Holocaust studies is the Holocaust was much more than Auschwitz, or much more of the physical murder of the Jews. We can talk about the cultural persecution of the Jewish culture and so and many other things. If I would have time, and I guess I don't have time, I would have many questions and remarks regarding many of the examples that you gave. For example, you were talking about Hungary, but we know about the German involvement in what is happening in Hungary. Eichmann is already coming to Budapest on the 14th of April to organize. Of course, he gets the help of all those people, the Hungarians, the Gendarmerie, and so on, but he's part of it. We could talk about the parliament and of Bulgaria and the parliament in Bulgaria and what did they do to regarding the interpretation. And we can talk about those different states that you mentioned, that many of them, the way that they treated the Jews was some kind of a tool to show their independence to the Nazis, although they did many radical steps by themselves. And of course, the discussion of ghettos, if we would have time, because we know that the ghettos are much more complicated than were presented here. Not only that, you use the term overcrowded ghettos, we have ghettos which of course are not at all overcrowded. We have places that there are no ghettos until the end of 42 or even the end of 43. So things are much more complicated when we come to the micro-history, because these general explanations are many times very appealing, but the question is, what do they really gain us? And I'll get to it in a second. And I'm not sure that all the times I understood what the small people behind those decisions, because you're talking about patterns of violence, but at the bottom line, the motives of the people who took the decisions beyond all of those small events that at the bottom that became the Holocaust, of the mass murder of this group or another group, not only during the Holocaust. I'm not sure that I really understood what do we know about those different patterns. Now, and here I want to say that what you offer here and what I think genocide researchers offers us, the Holocaust researchers, is really a different context. And I'm asking myself, what can I, as a Holocaust researcher, take from this context? And I'll try to explain. When I read the research dealing with the history of the Jewish people, many times they make me ask questions about, for example, solidarity within the Jewish community. We like to talk about Jewish solidarity, but there wasn't any Jewish real solidarity, not during the Holocaust, not before. And when you read the research about those things, you can see it in this long run of the history of the Jewish people, question of leadership and so on. When I'm reading research of some of my colleagues from Poland dealing with European history in general and Polish history in particular, they make me ask questions about the attitude to minorities, question of identity, how Jews saw themselves in different times and so on. I'm asking myself how this context of genocide can bring me to ask better questions about the Holocaust or about similar events. For example, if I could understand better the human mechanism, for example, for people to understand, to acknowledge what is being done to them by the perpetrators, to understand better this micro-history, maybe many times will make me or help me be a better researcher of this specific event than those general things which are very, very important, but not always I feel that they bring me the context where I can deepen with it. So I'll stop here with those first questions. Thanks.